Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Back, folks. I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC. Now would be a great time for you to go to the Apple Store and download the 77 WABC Apple app to be sure that you don't miss any of the great programming we have here at 77 WABC. You, of course, can always find us at 770 on the AM dial if you're fortunate enough to live in the greater New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area where I grew up. But if not, you can always hear us at WABCradio.com. That's WABCradio.com because we are live streaming around the world in 173 countries, including the United States. So there's no excuse for missing our show every Sunday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, where we talk news, politics, history, style, fashion, culture, and more. Joining us now is one of my attorneys who worked on my case when I was framed by special counsel Robert Mueller, accused in the media of being involved in Russian collusion or WikiLeaks collaboration or coordinating the timing of the drop of the WikiLeaks disclosures, none of which, of course, the government was ever able to prove any evidence of. But joining me now is one of my lawyers in that case, also a good friend, and that rare lawyer who has both legal knowledge but a political understanding. Tyler Nixon joins us today on The Roger Stone Show. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Roger, it's an honor to be with you, and of course, I appreciate your kind words, and I feel like with these Trump cases, it's, as you mentioned earlier, deja vu all over again, really. Your case was the template, the prototype, and it's amazing how in just the 4 interim years, how they've so developed further these lawfare tactics.
Yeah, you almost don't know where to start. I guess the most egregious thing is the gag order. So let me get this straight. Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels, they can go out now and say anything they want in any public forum, and there's no worry about how that might taint the jury pool. But Donald Trump, oh no, he's gagged. He can't comment.
Well, what's more shocking is what really frankly perturbed me in your case with your equally unconstitutional and your case overly broad to the point of lasting past the trial is the fact that there's this presumption, I guess, this totally wrong-headed presumption on the parts of obviously judges, these leftist judges, as well as the prosecutors, that the gag order or the pretrial publicity or trial publicity prohibitions somehow are to benefit the government and somehow to be the benefit of the state, when it's exactly the opposite. Any types of restrictions like that are purely for the rights of the defendant, in order for the defendant to have a fair trial. The state has no rights. The government has no rights. They have authority, they have obligations, they have duties, but they don't have rights, in other words, to a fair trial. That's not what's guaranteed in the Constitution. It's total perversion for them to actually use a gag order just generally, but also for the fact of what we saw in your case and what we see, I think, in President Trump's case, which is to cover up the corruption of the prosecutors and the conflicts of interest and the partisan undercurrent beneath all of it. And it's disgusting, particularly with this judge, because he directly gagged President Trump to discuss his daughter and or members, family members, as though she's some like little toddler or something, when she's a high-powered, high-paid Democrat operative with a direct interest in the outcome of the case. And this is clearly these are disgusting violations of a criminal defendant's rights, as was done to you in Washington, D.C., based on garbage, too. I mean, I might add that the interpretation of you're simply posting a graphic that had the judge from another website and criticizing the judge, which is your right, absolute sacrosanct right to criticize the government at any point of your prosecution or involvement, or whether you're prosecuted or not, but took this graphic and blew it up into, you'd think you had threatened the life of a federal judge. I mean, it was total disingenuous insanity. And in the case of President Trump, I mean, it's just generally he speaks about the case, and anybody outside of the, I mean, it's a level of thin-skinned. It's too extreme to be just thin-skinned. The fact is, they want to cover up corruption. They did it in your case. They're trying to do it in his case. The only thing I can say is that, thank God, your case came while President Trump was still in office and concluded before he left, because you'd be rotting in a prison right now, I have no doubt, had it lasted past the time of his opportunity to pardon you. And thank God he did.
Despite the fact that Mueller himself was forced to admit in his final long-hidden, long-redacted report that he hadn't actually found any Russian collusion, no WikiLeaks collaboration, or, by his admission, any other crime. So then what was my motive to dissemble before the House Intelligence Committee in my voluntary testimony? I had none. So, yeah, did I make misstatements? Yeah, I did. They were entirely immaterial. They hid no underlying crime, certainly not Russian collusion or any coordination with WikiLeaks. My favorite part of the special counsel's report, however, was the conclusion that literally nothing claimed by right-wing gadfly Jerry Corsi could ever actually be corroborated. That didn't get covered by anyone, of course. As you know, Tyler, Trump has moved that Judge Merchand recuse himself. My lawyers also moved the judge recuse herself in my case. Her response was that good faith motion was a quote-unquote publicity stunt. Funny, she never talked about the government lawyers that way. And then we've already seen what this jury makeup in New York City looks like. And, well, if you watch that great piece by Jesse Waters the other night, doesn't look good. You actually had one juror who, after they were selected, went out and did a presser where they attacked Donald Trump. A juror who says, oh, yes, I have anti-Trump postings on my social media, but believe me, I can be objective. I can issue a objective decision in this case. In my case, as you know, Tamika Hart, who was the jury forewoman, who said during jury selection and during the trial she wasn't aware of who I was. She wasn't really familiar with the case. Turns out she was attacking me and Donald Trump, actually calling anyone who supported Trump a racist. I guess that would be me. Attacking me regarding the actual case in which she was later selected as a juror, and having lied to get on the jury, kept all of her social media postings on a private setting, only to be exposed after the trial. Now, lawyers as diverse as Jonathan Turley, who's a legal scholar but certainly no conservative Republican, nor a fan of Roger Stone for that matter, or Judge Andrew Napolitano, or even Alan Dershowitz, all of them said I was entitled to, at a minimum, a new trial. But the judge ruled that the actions of Tamika Hart, who should have been prosecuted herself for lying to get on the stand, well, that wasn't evidence of any bias.
Yeah, she should have been disbarred as well. She's an attorney. She knows better, and she knows what she should have done, and she did the exact opposite in violation of law. She basically perjured herself and violated her attorney ethics as well, which don't simply extend. When you're an attorney and you act in any capacity concerning the law, even as just a plaintiff or a litigant, you still have the higher obligations of the legal ethics to observe, and she did not do that. But her behavior is minor compared to Berman Jackson, the judge's handling of it, which is just, it was beyond. If there was any absolute single act that said this is a 100% rigged case, to the point this judge is willing to accept criminal activity and subversion of a trial by a partisan interested forewoman, no less, and just basically essentially just poo-pooed it away as though it was nothing. In a true criminal trial where someone's on trial for their life with real charges, this would be cause for mistrial and absolutely throwing out the entire trial because it taints. It's fundamentally tainted in that way. And what we see in New York with these jurors, I mean, they had a juror yesterday who was removed after being sworn in, no less, because it was unearthed finally, or certainly with no help of the court or the prosecution, that this person had been arrested for tearing up right-wing or right-leaning whatever political signs, and had also been involved in corruption and prosecuted for that as well. So this is like this process is so rough and tumble, as we saw with your jury. You're never gonna. I mean, if these people are willing to lie, and without the diligence of the defense being able to on the fly investigate these people sufficiently, and with a hostile judge, frankly, who's willing to, as Amy Berman Jackson did in your case, willing to let anything slide, really. All you have to do is say, oh, I can be impartial, of course, because, no partisan would lie, no leftist would lie, and certainly wouldn't want to be on any sort of jury that convicts Donald Trump, right? No, they wouldn't revel in that. So, I mean, it all comes down to the judge. I mean, we can talk about the jury's involved, and we can talk about even the prosecution. But really, if the judge is corrupt, the whole thing is completely. It taints it all in every respect, no matter what you try to do.
Running a business comes with a lot of what ifs, but luckily, there's a simple answer to them: Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Hank's the family fixer, always with his tool belt. But living with prostate cancer, he needed help. He asked his doctor about Xtandi and enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
The other commonality I have noticed is Judge Merchan wants to limit those defenses that Donald Trump and his lawyers are able to put forward. So, for example, the conclusions of the U.S. attorney in the Southern District in New York, who who took people to the grand jury to explore this entire Stormy Daniels matter, that cannot be raised. In the fact that there was no prosecution cannot be raised in Trump's defense. The fact that the Federal Election Commission investigated whether these payments, alleged payments to Stormy Daniels, should have been considered campaign contributions and should have been reported, and therefore were not reported in violation of the law. The judge will not allow that to be admitted. In my case, the judge said that corruption by the special counsel's office, the FBI, the Department of Justice, or any member of Congress, Adam Schiff, could not be used in Stone's defense. That's a violation of the U.S. Supreme Court decision Kiles v. Whitley, which holds that the integrity of an investigation or an indictment is always grounds for defense. Talk about a railroad.
At any stage, yeah. At any stage of the proceeding, too. It's not just like you have to raise it beforehand and otherwise. No, if at any point, even literally on the eve of a judgment by a jury or a verdict, I mean, if you find corruption amongst the prosecution or in any aspect of the proceeding, that's relevant and should be dealt with. But you're right, that's exactly Berman Jackson issued a blanket order essentially precluding you from even raising any whiff of the incredibly extensive political and partisan ties of all the people involved in the prosecution. Not least being Andrew Weissman, who I would note that your indictment, which I've reviewed again, you were never charged with anything related to or anything that had anything to do with Russian collusion, or it was all process, material or false statements, and the Credico thing, the Credico charges, which is interesting. You have Credico. He's got Cohen, so someone as dubious, that star witness as dubious as can be. In Credico's case, I just can't believe he went along with the idea that you actually threatened him in some manner when he was really the one who was the unhinged threat maker, and frankly lied. I mean, I've seen the texts, I've reviewed, I know them like chapter and verse, the texts that went on between you and him, as well as the emails, and the idea that you threatened him and did anything, frankly, to try to help the man with just generally with his career, with his his tanking. Whatever if you could call it a career, but I mean, you're probably the only one who got the man work in years, over a period of years, and you get repaid by his clamming up, not wanting to be associated somehow with Donald Trump or Roger Stone, and essentially, I don't know if he went as far as Corsi in terms of lying, in my opinion, but Credico was a real disappointment as a human being, generally.
Well, to be absolutely clear, everything I knew about Julian Assange's release of materials regarding the DNC and Hillary Clinton, I read online, with the one exception that Randy Credico, a sometime New York talk show host, told me that they would come in October and that they would be devastating. And when I asked him how he knew this, he said, and I quote, and we have this in a text message, "I know a woman lawyer who works for Assange. Don't ask any more questions." There it is. That, by the way, was submitted to the special counsel's office the day before I was arrested. It proves that Credico's source was a woman lawyer. Said woman lawyer was on the stand, as was Credico. In my trial, they both denied that, but there it was in black and white. By the way, I never knew what it was that was going to be released. I only knew from him that it was coming in October, and according to him, it would be devastating. The prosecutors tried to act like this was a big secret of some kind.
Yeah, except that Julian Assange had posted as much himself since May of that year, all over the place. I mean, all you had to do was read his feed or the WikiLeaks feed to know exactly what was coming. Maybe not exact dates, but I think Credico was puffing himself up. And the fact that it was Credico was used as a witness. I mean, it was just shocking to me that there was just nothing to the case whatsoever. Your case, it was just a total concoction. Even the indictment is incoherent if you don't isolate the facts. You put everything in context. And looking at President Trump's case, I mean, they've got this idea that President Trump somehow has to he has to disprove their case. I mean, they have a high hurdle to meet in terms of the elements. They have to prove every element of the fraud offense, much less haven't really specified what crime he was trying to perpetrate, because, NDAs with mistresses or anybody, they can call it hush money all they want, but they're illegal transactions and are ubiquitous. They're used all over the place, whether it be involving that or trade secrets. But the elements that they have to prove are, 1, a material misrepresentation or omission of fact; 2, made by defendant with knowledge of its falsity; 3, the intent to defraud; and then 4, reasonable reliance on the part of the plaintiff and resulting damage to the plaintiff. Well, this is the, quote, people of New York, who have been offended by this clerical error and blown up into 34 felony counts. And it's absurd. How can they can't even possibly meet the last 2 elements, which is, again, reasonable reliance on the part of the plaintiff. The plaintiff being what? The people of New York, or somehow there's some moral compunction here, and the resulting damage to the plaintiff. What damage? To their moral sense because Donald Trump, had a mistress or whatever, had an affair? It's such a pile of garbage. It's sickening that they have these people who purport to be vicars of justice pursuing it, and particularly this Colangelo mercenary. I mean, these are the people who need to be wholesale purged, not just from the DOJ, but from the entire system when Donald Trump is reelected in November.
All right, folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Tyler Nixon, attorney at law who ably worked on my case in my defense, and we'll be right back after this commercial message.